Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of my Sunderland 11, as always, in association with the Sunderland Food Bank and the Sunderland Fans Museum. Please go and check them out. The links are in the description below. Right, so today's guest, we've got a very special guest, former Sunderland player. I'll just get. He made 320 appearances, scoring 25 goals from the years 1986 to 1994. I'm joined with Gary Owers. How you doing, Gary?
I'm great. Thanks for asking us on.
Yeah, no worries whatsoever. How you doing though? What are you up to these days? I think for people who don't know that you're a football manager.
No, I've probably got the sack as usual when I was a football manager. So my last job was at Torquay. That went disastrously wrong. So, and I work for the National League now. I'm head of player development. So basically, I've gone around and set up a youth system for all the clubs that are in the National League and outside EPPP. I also am match summariser for BBC Radio Bristol. I cover all the Bristol City games. So I am your equivalent, I suppose, up there to Benno.
Yeah, fair enough. How are you enjoying that though? So do you still get to go to games this season and be in a stadium?
Yeah, I've been to since lockdown. I was lucky enough last season to attend the games, which was, that was a new experience. It was quite nerve-wracking actually, turn up for a game and go through all the protocols, getting zapped by thermal imaging cameras to see if you had a temperature, filling in all the paperwork, and then just sitting in an empty stadium where the only sound was either the sound of the players playing the match or the sound of the virtual crowd with obviously virtual supporters inside the stadium. So interesting. The football suffered, I think, nowhere near the same amount of excitement or passion. I think the results told the story, that there was no influence. I mean, imagine playing at the Stadium of Light in front of a full stadium, how that would influence Sunderland playing on a good day. And just all of that was missing. So, yeah, this season pretty much the same. But really now it's not such an enjoyable experience. It used to be a good day out, go and meet people, have a meal. You'd see the odd person, bump into them in the press lounge. And now it's just turn up, go in, sit down, talk about the game, and go home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's still lucky you get to go to the games, but I mean, yeah, of course, it is very different. But hopefully, the days of how they used to be aren't too far away. It's probably just this season. Hopefully, next season we can get back to how it normally was. Gary, I wanted to ask you. You sort of growing up and getting into football. I think you were originally born in Newcastle. Now, did you support the Black and Whites growing up?
Well, I always get asked that question. And being born in Newcastle was actually out of my hands, so I can't take all the blame for that. But I was brought up, in a family full of Newcastle fans. I have to say, my first ever proper game I went to, though, was a game, Sunderland versus Newcastle, after Sunderland had won the World Cup. I think that was a testimonial match at St James's Park, and I can't quite remember who it was. And obviously, my family moved around the northeast a little bit during my early days, and eventually I found myself living in Berkeley and Washington, and signed for Sunderland at the very, very young age of 14. So if you think that, I was at Sunderland for 10, 11, 12 years, really, spent all my time playing in a red and white shirt. My affinity has always been, with Sunderland, and I'm always going to get that sort of label, I suppose, because of my birth certificate. But my alliance and allegiances were to the red and whites.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think Gordon Armstrong said the same thing. I think he was born in Newcastle and sort of grew up around the area, but it's a Sunderland fan and came and played for Sunderland. But I mean, as you said there, your family were mostly Newcastle fans. So what were their sort of reaction to you? Seeing their seeing their sort of their son, grow up and playing a red and white shirt rather than black and white. Were they happy for you, or were they thinking, I'd much rather him play for Newcastle?
No, I mean, my mother brought us up, in fairness, on our own with my aunts and uncles, and they were just happy for me to be getting on. It's different back in those days. Scouting networks, I'd had trials at Middlesbrough, Coventry, Notts County, I suppose. There were other clubs interested. Living in Berkeley and I had to rely on other people to get me to training and things like that. I used to go in during the school holidays. We used to go to Washington twice a week to train, and I always had to get picked up because I didn't have anyone. My mother couldn't drive. So no, they were happy that it sort of fit in with what I did. I did 2 years as a schoolboy, associate schoolboy, and then I was lucky that I got an apprenticeship when I was 16. So straight away moved into the hostel on Roker seafront between 16 and 18, and I have to say that was probably two of the most enjoyable years of my life as a young man growing up, experiencing that, living with some of the people that I lived with, some of the characters, and the times that we had together, some of the stuff that we got up to that we weren't supposed to get up to, and obviously the football side of it as well, the early knockings of being a professional footballer.
Excellent. Do you think football was always something that you were gonna do and get into, or did you have any other sort of passions when you were younger? Or was it just football was that first priority and it was always what you were going to do?
No, it was football. I played lots of sports. Actually, I played rugby for the county, basketball for the county. I was a good athlete, and I probably only played football for the district. So I suppose I was a late development on that front. There was always lads that were seen to be ahead of me, 14, 15, 16. Often the lads that sort of physically developed, grew quicker, were stronger, quicker. Eventually, I caught them up and overtook them. But I think every young lad's dream back in those days was to play football, and football's changed over the years, but it was always my dream, certainly.
That's good to hear. What were sort of the pressures as a young player, walking out on an iconic ground like Roker Park in front of all those fans who, I mean, we all, we know the Sunderland fans, you know the history of working all week in the shipyards pits, going to the game on a Saturday. What was it like as sort of a young player? Was there quite a lot of pressure on your shoulders there, or was it something you sort of used to thrive off?
No, the pressure was to get your contract, wasn't it? So basically, where you've got under 23 football now, so some players get 4 or 5 years worth of not playing in the first team before they make the first team debut. We had 2 years to get professional contract. You were pretty much expected to get in the first team by the time you were 18 or 19, and if you didn't, you were out the door. So that was the pressure. Fortunately, well, not really that fortunate. By working really hard, I got that opportunity when I was 18 to get in the first team, and then you just thrive on walking out there. I mean, some of the people talk about Roker Park, and I always get quite emotional about it. The atmosphere, the passion of the supporters, and when they were really on your side, there wasn't a better place anywhere to play football that I can think of. And it's all right me sitting here saying that, but I've played against lads over the years that used to come and play against Sunderland at Roker Park, and they always used to ask me, "Oh my God, what was it like playing in that stadium?" It was just a fantastic cauldron of noise. And the other side of it was, when it wasn't going so well, we had to sort of bear the wrath of the fans' tongues. And I always tell a story. There was a game when we weren't doing so well. I think we played Southend, and you always got a reaction at half time, didn't you? You get booed off if you're doing poorly, and you get clapped off in a cheer if you're doing well. So we got absolutely the biggest boo you can ever imagine at half time. We were awful. But what normally happens then is the supporters go away and have a cup of tea, have a chat with the mates, and have a drink. And by the time you come out again, they're on your side, and they give you a little bit of a round of applause back on. Anyway, we got booed back on this occasion. It was so bad. So that sticks in my mind. But happy times, no pressure. We'd sat and watched as apprentices Sunderland struggle for 2 years under Laurie McMenemy. That team got crucified. Just it didn't work out. And actually, Laurie, as a manager and as a person to me, was fantastic, and as his son was Chris McMenemy. So I think you always felt that looking at that team as a young lad, you always thought like you had a chance of getting into it.
Yeah, excellent. I think we see now a lot of people and a lot of players in the past few years at Sunderland maybe haven't had that sort of mental ability to play for the club. I don't know what it is when it gets to a point where, you know, it's maybe the business end of the season and a lot of people, they sort of crumble under the pressure. But back then, I think there were a lot of sort of the local people playing for Sunderland. I think, you know, you hear the player interviews, a lot of people have Northeast accents. But what was it actually like? I mean, I know you said earlier football's changed quite a lot, but do you think it was very important back then that, you know, more people in the team really understood the club, and that's probably why we're a bit more successful than we are nowadays?
100%. I mean, I don't really want to start talking about what's happening in the academy. I think the fans love a local lad in the team. You know, when I think back, there was myself, Gordon, Dickie Ord come through, Martin Smith, Craig Russell, Mickey Gray, you know, just Lee Howie, just local lad after local lad, and I probably missed a few. There were so many, but it's probably the squads were smaller, the recruitment was different, and you had to have that right type of character, your right personality, and all them lads that did get through. They're pretty tough characters, thick-skinned, and that's why they got. Not only did they get through, they all, you know, made a significant contribution to the team. But the big thing behind that was the spirit. I mean, there was a lot of young lads in the team when I played, and the squad was really small, but the spirit and the camaraderie was second to nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a season that is quite well remembered at your time at the club is the season we got promoted from the third division at the first attempt. Now, you were a regular in that season. What was that season like for you?
Well, it was just a dream for me. You think I start pre-season, Dennis Smith and Viv Busby come into the club, and you know, even the fact that they knew your name on the first day, that gave you a lift. They spoke about watching you. Dennis had actually said, I tried to sign you 2 or 3 times when I was manager of York, and I was only 16 or 17. So I thought, you must quite like us, this manager. And then elevated first game of the season. I made my debut at Brentford away, and I mean, he picked us every week pretty much, until I think I had a couple of injuries. I recall probably I had a broken bone in my foot and missed the running at the end of the season, but just to be part of it, we were winning every week. I don't think we started great. Then Marco obviously joined, and he got us going. Him and Eric, fantastic partnership, and things just went from strength to strength. But again, it was a mixture. It was something new. Goodness me, I don't think Sunderland ever been in that division ever in the history. So how were the fans going to react? Were they going to come and support us? Of course they were. You know, they're only ever going to support Sunderland, thick and thin. And we were having great fun on the pitch, but I tell you what, even more fun off the pitch, and that was one of the reasons I maintain that why we've done so well. We were so close. We did everything together. We went out together. You know, we were getting up to all sorts as young lads, going away on trips, and it was just a really, really fun time.
Excellent. Yeah, another great memory Sunderland fans have, and in particular, I mean, it's a massive memory my dad has as well. You know, we've got the photographs from the match in, you know, picture frames around our house. It was the 1990 semi-final, the playoff semi-final, 2-0 win against Newcastle. What do you remember from that night? Because that was mayhem that that night.
Well, it was, and I have to say, in my football life, I think that was the best night of my life. Just everything. We played the first leg at Roker Park, 0-0. Obviously, Paul Hardyman had missed a penalty in the last minute and went and tried to take retribution on John Burridge by kicking his head off, and you know, he got a red card, so he missed that. And I think it was a fierce game at Roker Park. Some of the tackles and the commitment that was shown, you know, no quarter taken and honours even. I think everybody thought we'd blown it. Newcastle had a good home record, if I remember, but I think we had a brilliant away record. We knew we were still in it. and we just went there. Dennis, like as a manager, when you think, how do you react between the games? There wasn't a lot of time. He was calm. He just give you that belief and that confidence that it doesn't matter where you're going, who you're going to play against at this level, you can go there and win. And I mean, on the night, from the first kick all the way through the last kick, I thought as an 11, we played really well. Everybody performed, 8 or 9 out of 10. And 2-0, I think Tony Norman made a couple of saves. They might have hit the outside of the post early in the game, and they tried everything, even tried invading the pitch, and they couldn't even get that right.
Yeah.
And just the scenes at the end, where we stood there off the pitch for a while, pouring down with rain. The pitch was a quagmire. We didn't know if we were going to get the game finished, and the ref just stood there. He says, "Don't worry, lads. Even if we're here at 2:00 in the morning, we'll be finishing this game." And we got on for a couple of minutes. He blew his whistle, and off we came. And it was just it was an unbelievable experience, for a game of that magnitude at the time. And I know they've played each other in the Premier League, and people will recall them games. But at the time, there hadn't been as big a game between Newcastle and Sunderland ever. The playoffs are quite a new concept, and just to win that game, get on that bus that left St James's and pretty much headed straight to Fino's in Sunderland, which was a nightclub. Get off it, and everybody walk in there in the tracksuits and sort of get a round of applause and a couple of free drinks. It was just a brilliant night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as soon as Gabbiadini scored that goal with his left foot straight in the corner, you saw how just mental the fans went after that. It was, they went everywhere, and I mean, it was just such a great moment. And also, there's a video of the scenes in the Sunderland dressing room after that game, and everyone's going mental. So clearly, that day meant as much to the players as it did the fans.
Well, it's a good job there wasn't a camera in Fino's, because that was even worse scenes in there. But no, I mean, I think I set the first goal up for Eric. Eric hadn't scored for a while, and that got us off to a good start, give us something to defend. But we just got stronger and stronger. And like you say, when I look at the footage, I mean, it poured down that night. There was steam coming off the fans in the Sunderland end. They were rammed into that Leazer's end. God knows how many, 7,000, 8,000. They couldn't move. The swayed. It wasn't like a massive end, but just to see everybody sort of go up when that goal went in, it always makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It's brilliant. And the only thing at the end that was really disappointing was that we had to get out of town pretty quick, because the police weren't having us hanging around in Newcastle, and we couldn't really go out and celebrate with the supporters at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a fantastic night. Now, obviously, that was the semi-final. Now, you obviously went on to the final at Wembley. This was a very strange circumstance that the sort of both clubs found themselves in against Swindon Town. Now, obviously, Sunderland lost that game 1-0, but for one reason or another, Swindon Town had the financial problems that they had, and Sunderland ended up going up. So what was your reaction to, you had the disappointment of losing the final, but then you found out you were getting promoted? What was that sort of reaction like?
Well, the game was disappointing. It was a bit of an anticlimax. There was a big build-up around the town, as you can imagine. Dennis actually took us away. We went to Menorca for 4 or 5 days. Not sure whether that was the best preparation, but his reasoning was fair enough. It is a pressure cooker. There was quite a bit of time. He took us away to get away from it. 1-0. Swindon were the better team. I mean, they were playing wing backs, one of the first teams to play wing backs. They ran us ragged, and if it wasn't for Tony Norman, I think it could have been embarrassing, the scoreline. We sort of got on the bus and went back to Sunderland with our tails between our legs. And then a couple of days later, pretty quickly, I think it might have been by Monday or Tuesday, it was announced that they were going to get booted out and we were going to get promoted. So mixed feelings. I think the biggest disappointment was that we didn't actually get the job done ourselves. We've been in great form towards the end of the season. We'd gone away and won game after game after game, got in the playoffs, beat Newcastle, and then we were probably favourites, and we were well beaten by Swindon. but you make the most of the opportunity, and we did celebrate. We had a few get-togethers, and then obviously the excitement of looking forward to playing in the highest division the next season, and that was pretty, a couple of successful campaigns, because when Dennis had joined us, we'd been in the third division, and then I think 3 seasons later we're in the top division again.
Yeah, exactly, and no, it just showed really, and it's a shame. Obviously, we didn't win that game against Swindon Town, because that would have just been the icing on the cake, really, from all of that. But we still got promoted in the end, so that's all that matters one way or another. Another final that you did play in was the 1992 FA Cup final against Liverpool. Now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were injured for nearly all of the rounds of the FA Cup, but you're actually fit for the final.
I played in the third round. I think we beat Port Vale.
Yeah.
So I played in that, and then I got this injury that was a new injury at the time. When I think back years later, I tried to think it was like a pelvic injury, and I couldn't for the life of us think why I'd got that injury, and it was a relatively new injury. But when I think back, they changed the rules about the back pass rule.
Yeah.
And there was some discussion about whether that meant that all the goalkeepers were going to start getting sent off, because we were going to forget about the back pass rule and pick the ball up and get sent off. So Dennis had this idea that he needed someone to start doing goalkeeping training that was an outfield player. So I had like a bit of a spell of probably 6 or 7 weeks where I was training with the lads and then going and standing goal, and people were taking pot shots at us, and I was sort of diving to my side and down to my side and falling on my hips a lot. And I reckon that, when I think back, I actually think that's what caused it. So a bit of a strange situation, but yeah, I got myself fit. Again, the spirit was brilliant, and Dennis had gone, unfortunately. Crosser had come in, and he just got this thing going in the cup games. We're travelling to the away games on train and not on the bus. We were staying over. We had a bit of music going. There's 1 or 2 new players coming to the club. Characters, Anton Rogan, John Byrne, even Don Goodman was very much part of it, even though he was cup tied. And they just, for some reason, for the cup games, they just, they looked a different team. We'd struggled in the league. I think it took us till the last game of the season to make sure that we were safe from getting relegated again. So it was strange times. And then, got the final, trying to get myself fit, got myself into contention. And I got selected, thankfully. It would have been interesting. I possibly might not have played. John Kay, was a brilliant lad. He got a calf injury when we went away to train at Bisham Abbey. And, you think of all the years as a footballer, or the amount of opportunities you get to play in a cup final, and he could have easily not said anything, went out there, got his place in the team, went out there and put his hands up after 5 minutes and said, I'm injured, but he didn't. And that was the type of guy John was. So that left an opening, and Malcolm selected me to play at right back. I mean, Rushy had got in the team. David Rushy done brilliant in the games leading up to the cup final. I can't think for the life of us that Malcolm would have left him out. So, yeah, possibly a bit fortunate. But then again, I look at the games that I played over the previous seasons. I had been selected. I played in different positions. I'd always made myself available. And if I'd missed out, I would have been good at myself.
Yeah, exactly. But at least you did get the chance. Now, obviously, your time at Sunderland did come to an end in 1994. I think it was a swap deal with Martin Scott. How did you feel leaving the club? Was it something you sort of felt the time was right, or did you want to stay at the club?
I was gutted. I mean, there was so much going on. I had some disruption in my personal life. I'd lost my mother. There was times when I could have left Sunderland. There were clubs willing to pay quite a bit of money for us. Dennis Smith had told us that. I'd sat in discussions with a couple of clubs. I'd been contacted by clubs. And I don't suppose I really wanted to leave Sunderland at the time. I was happy to sign a long-term contract. I signed a 4-year contract, which was quite a long-term contract at that time. Had a couple of injuries and just, lost a bit of form, if you like, got a bit of stick, and just Mick Buxton had taken over. The team was struggling. Lots going on off the pitch, and I just felt that I'd sort of shuffled out the back door, really. There was lads getting testimonials that had been there less time than me. They were all getting looked after. And I was sort of, Terry Butcher had tried to get rid of a lot of us because I don't think he couldn't cope with the fact that we were all so close. He felt he had to smash that team spirit up. And I think that was the point that it started to go a little bit sour with the results. When he started that process, then he left. Mick come in. He couldn't really get it going. And it was just before Christmas. It was Bristol. It was a long way away from home. I went down, met Joe Jordan. It was a terrific man, and he sort of convinced us really to make the change. Probably all happened so quickly. I didn't have enough time to reflect on it. Probably didn't have anybody in my life I could go to and buy myself a couple of days and to make that decision, or put a little bit more thought into it. But I made the decision, and you make the decisions and you've just got to get on with it. I suppose if there's one regret, it's that I sort of missed that opportunity to work under Peter Reid. He'd been someone that I'd known a little bit, and I just wonder whether I could have got myself going again. I'm sure I could have, just got myself fit again and sorted out the things that were going wrong off the pitch, and things might have been different. But you move on. And I had my time, and I had the best time of my life, and I look, what you said at the start, 320 games for Sunderland it's up there. I think it's whatever it is, 25 or 26 of all time. And I'm quite proud of that, because I think I look at the lads that play now, and some people don't even play 320 games over the course of the careers, and I managed to squeeze that all in before I was 24, 25.
Yeah, exactly, and playing for Sunderland for I think eight years as well. So I mean that's fantastic. I mean Lee Cattermole I think played for Sunderland for 10 years and didn't even.
Well, you say 8, but I always count 10 because I had 2 years in the apprentice as well. So probably 8 years in the first team.
Yeah, that's true. I think so 8 years in the first team. But I mean 320 appearances is fantastic. And as I was saying, Lee Cattermole played for Sunderland for 10 years. I think only got up to about 250 appearances or something like that. So I think but it's different for every player. But I mean, at least you did have all those years at Sunderland, really. But if you look back at your whole time at Sunderland, how would you? If you put it in your own words, just like reflect on your career, would you say it was a really, really good time in your life?
Well, I loved it. Like I say, our success come pretty quickly. If you think about the first 3 years, I think 2 promotions, a playoff final, a cup final, and probably being called up to the England under-21 squad. So it all come pretty quickly, and I thought that was the norm. So maybe it's when the tough times come that might have just set us back a little bit, but I always say I was lucky, to play up there in front of them supporters at Roker Park. Just really, really exciting times, and not just that. Some of the lads that I shared a dressing room with, fantastic people. Still keep in touch with them a lot now, and you can never take that away from us. People say, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And I just say, whatever happens in my life, whatever I do, I've got them special memories.
Absolutely, and I mean, if you had to put it down to one, your best memory of Sunderland, what would you say that is?
Well, the game obviously that we spoke about would be that 1990 playoff victory at St James's Park. If you pushed us and asked off the pitch, goodness me, there'd be more than one. Some of we used to go away at the end of the season. I've seen some of the funniest things. I can't even explain. I don't think I'll be allowed to explain, but I've seen some funny things. I've seen some funny lads. I'll tell you what. The funniest thing I ever seen on a football pitch, though, and you'll know what I'm going to say, and I put it on now, is the Wigan mud skiers.
Yes.
So I don't know if you're familiar with that. There's footage out there on YouTube where we're playing at Wigan at their old stadium, and we're playing on this pitch. It's basically sand and mud, and it's horrific. And the Sunderland fans are like behind this. It's on a grass verge, and it's pouring down with rain, and they start coming down this hill and having a few too many drinks and getting braver and braver. And then the lad comes down and does a somersault. And the game actually started. The game stopped for a break, and everybody just stood and watched the Wigan Mud Skiers in action. And then the game started. There's a tackle on me, I think. Someone does a long jump. I end up in the crowd, I think, having a fight with someone in the crowd. So that was an interesting day.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention they're all like doing like a little slip and slide on the mud, and then someone comes along and just does a front flip and lands on their back.
It's brilliant. I mean, God knows, I often wonder, like, when they went home that night, the wives and the girlfriends, and they said, "Where have you been, pet?" Says, "Oh, I've been in the match." Some of them had no clothes, like scrapes and scratches on the backs, and oh my goodness, hilarious.
Fantastic. Don't get things like that anymore, though. But no, that's fantastic.
Imagine the health and safety officer trying to.
Oh, I know.
That one down.
Imagine. Yeah, I could get down to my last few questions before we go through your Sunderland's 11, Gary. Do you still sort of look out for Sunderland now, and how do you think the club have, well, I mean, now I've been doing the past few years as a former player yourself. You've been there through the really good times and sort of the not so good times as well. How do you think the club's sort of getting on now?
Well, first of all, yeah, of course I follow them. My lads who are both Bristolians follow them as well, and one of my sons he's a young pro at Bristol City, and he's still always keen to get to the Sunderland games. When McCann, we went to the last game before lockdown at Bristol Rovers, obviously being down here, and that was just not a pleasant experience. The team were awful, the performance was awful, and all them Sunderland fans that made that long journey went away that evening and hadn't seen a team that they were proud of. I'm sure they've been in that division too long. Something's gone wrong, and it's easy. We can all be negative. Well, how is Sunderland, a club of that size, with the money that has been spent, with parachute payments, being run so badly that after 3 seasons, and there's no guarantee they're going to do it this year, how on earth are they still in that division? And it's a crying shame. And the fans deserve better, to be honest, without a doubt. And I think it's quite. They're not embarrassing. Yeah, they're never embarrassed to support Sunderland. I know that, but they deserve better than to be in that division. Lee is someone I know very well, because obviously I've followed his teams down here in Bristol, so I know a lot about them. I think that he got them in a really, really strong position, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago, and then they've had some poor results. So it looks like they're going to have to go through a playoff scenario, and then that's like a lottery, isn't it? I suppose. Hopefully they can find some form. New ownership is positive. There's one or two things going on at the club to improve what they do. Certainly, they have to look at the recruitment. They have to look at the academy, the recruitment of the young players in the academy. And there's a whole host of things that they can do to improve it. But, hopefully they can get on the right track, recover step by step. First of all, they have to get back in the Championship. And that's a tough league now. And they'd have to come into the Championship with a team that would be able to keep them there. I can't see that. All of a sudden they're going to start flying through the divisions again. So it might be a slow process, but hopefully they're on the road to recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you're right. And I think all of the Sunderland fans, we just we just want to be back where we belong and back where we used to seeing Sunderland. Not down in these leagues, but in traditional Sunderland fashion. Always have to make things as difficult as possible. So going through the playoffs this season is probably something that we're gonna have to do. But who knows? Maybe I say to the Sunderland fans, maybe winning the Papa John's Trophy earlier on in the season, that was probably. That we did that to lift the curse of winning, losing.
Wembley, I've been there. I went there last year against against Pompey. I actually went with Malcolm Crosby. I went to the playoff final when they played Charlton, and Mickey Gray missed the penalty. And I went to the League Cup final against Manchester City with my sons. And it's always disappointment. Big build up, great fun, excitement, and then you have to deal with the aftermath. But how old are you, Matthew? Because you just look a young whippersnapper.
17.
So, oh my goodness! So you've been brought up as a red and white, and your father and your father's father, and all that, and it's in the blood, and it's a passionate part of the world. And I live in Britain. It's different down here. The passionate, but it's when you're in the northeast, the intensity is just on another level.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So, I mean, for me myself, I live in Essex, and the football clubs down here, they're nothing like Sunderland. And no, I hope that Sunderland and Newcastle could be the sort of the Manchester United, Manchester City. I hope they're like the Manchester clubs, because that is some people may laugh at that, but that's the clubs that they're capable of being with their the size of the club and their support. So I think hopefully in the next sort of 10 years time, both clubs are in sort of Sunderland more than the other ones are in a much better position.
Right.
But anyway, but I got one last question though before we go through your Sunderland 11. Now, if you could put it into your own words, what does Sunderland AFC mean to you?
Well, it was my life, wasn't it? For 10 years. It's probably where I made my name, and I got to be careful because I start getting choked up in a minute. But I do, yeah. Fun memories, great times.
Yeah, good.
I'm sure I could think of something a lot more interesting and exciting once the call's finished. But it does make us emotional because it sort of takes us back in time a little bit, and yeah,
no, fair enough. Yeah, no, we can see. Excellent. All right then. So we'll look back at your further good memories of Sunderland by going through your Sunderland 11. Now you've gone with as we said before we came on, you've gone with a very traditional 4-4-2. The best, the easiest, the simplest. And I think it could win you any game.
Good for us.
And for us, yes. So do you want to start us off with who you have in goal?
Yeah, pretty straightforward, really. Tony Norman. He's a quiet man that come from Hull City. Start comparing modern day goalkeeper, he could do it all. He could kick it as well as any outfield player. And I used to love playing with him, especially even when I'd played right back or wide on the right, because if there was a cross coming in from the left-hand side and Tony shouted keepers, I just used to start running because I knew that he would catch it. He was a great taker of crosses, and he would catch it. And I'd be on my bike, and I'd have 20 or 30 yards. Is probably why I've always found myself a little bit of space, because I anticipated what he was going to do. But very good goalkeeper, great lad, very much in the background, but loved the team spirit, and was always watching what was going on, and sort of, he joined in, having a laugh and a giggle as well with the lads.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, didn't he go on to be a policeman as well? So I don't think anyone was going to mess with him.
No, that sort of surprised me. But he was always, he used to behave himself. He'd come to the game with his kids and that, and just got on with it, really. And probably happy to come from Hull to Sunderland. I played with Ian Hesford, done well in the year that we got promoted from the 3rd division. Alec Chamberlain coming later on, really good lad, and excellent goalkeeper. But I think pound for pound, Tony was as good as anyone I played with as well. When he, used to hit them goal kicks, I played wide on the right, and the trajectory on them always give you a chance of just getting across the centre half or the full back and winning a header, because he didn't just used to kick it in the air. He used to really drive them. But yeah, so Tony Norman for me.
Excellent, and great choice you got there. All right then. So we'll head to your fullbacks first. So we'll go to your right back. Who have you got in right back position?
Oh dear, can only be one. John Kay.
Yeah.
Legend. I mean, I met John actually on a plane coming back from holiday before he signed for Sunderland. So when he walked in the door, I thought, "Whoa, what's he doing here?" He'd been at Wimbledon, but he's from Lumley. I think he probably still lives in the same house in Lumley. Local lad, excellent striker of a ball, fearsome competitor. I mean, some of the tales you'll have heard about some of the tackles. Always, the day that he broke his leg, he went off on a stretcher and he sort of jumped off as he got on the centre circle, jumped up and pretended he was on a canoe. Was for him to do that, that pretty much sums him up. But off the pitch, interesting character. Always got us into loads of trouble, but harmless really. It was some of the stories probably got exaggerated a little bit, and half the time it wasn't his fault. He's just a little bit mischievous, used to enjoy his time when he was out with the lads, and very good. Could do everything really. Attacking fullback, good defender, good distributor of the ball, and one of them lads that if you're going into war, then you want on your side as well.
Yeah, no, excellent. That's a great description of him there. Yeah, John Kay, fantastic player. Works way into your team. So we'll head over to your who you have it in the left back position. Who have you got there?
Well, just going back quickly to Casey, when I was an apprentice, there was people like Barry Venison, who's an excellent player, and Sean Elliott and Nick Pickering. And probably if I'd have played with them, they wouldn't have been far away because they're all good people to me and excellent players. But when I got into the team at 18, and he'd been there the year before, and I'd always used to sort of watch him when he played for other clubs, it was Frank Gray.
Yeah.
So calm, composed, unbelievable left foot. Wasn't playing in his prime for Sunderland, but his composure, he could play as a sweeper, if you like, as a second centre half, as a left back. He could probably play in midfield. And he's just one of them guys, and I bumped into him, funnily enough, a couple of weeks ago, that when I see them, I always sort of make a point of saying, well, I didn't realise until I left how much he helped us. And he was good with the young players. Again, brilliant company on a night out, and had experience. So it would be Frank at left back for me.
Yeah, fantastic choice. All right then, so we'll head to your central defenders you have. Do you want to start us off? Well, you can talk through them both.
Well, two very good friends, two excellent players. I think they sort of complement each other really well. I think they could both play in the modern game for different reasons. One, very athletic, elegant, physical player. One, very technical player, cultured player. So I think on the right side it would be Gary Bennett.
Yeah.
The right side centre half. Like he'd been at Sunderland a few years, to be honest, before I was on the scene. Had a great start to his career, always been a fan's favourite. But I think back to how he used to bring the ball out from defence into midfield and start attacks, and how quick he was, how aggressive he was, and how helpful he was. And again, someone that has been a real friend over the years, and we still keep in touch now, and always nice to catch up with him. But great player for Sunderland. And then on the left side is my best pal in the world, and always has been. We just hit it off from day one. We were sort of met as spotty teenagers. Well, he was. I didn't have any buds, and we just hit it off. We moved into the hostel together, and just everything we did, we went everywhere together. I used to go over and spend time in Merton with him. He used to come over to Washington with me, and just two young lads having a great time. He actually took him a while to establish himself after getting in the team as a 17-year-old, but great left foot. Could head it as well as anyone as well. When you talk about some of the great headers, he could head it 70 yards, Sticky. So it'd be Richard Ord, left side. But again, I speak to him nearly every week, and it's like we've just two teenagers that have both grown up, and we're getting on now. I'm in my 50s, and he's in his late 40s, and still have a really good personal friendship, and obviously something in common. And I was pleased when Reedy come in after I left, and he actually got himself going, become a little bit of a cult hero, and got the recognition he deserved, really, because there was times when he didn't always get treated very fairly by some of the managers, I felt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely agree there. And yeah, and I mean, someone who I never saw play, but you hear the stories of some people, talking about him, and yeah, fantastic. And alongside Gary Bennett as well. I mean, I don't think you could have, there's not many defensive partnerships that are more solid than that. So yeah, very solid defense and goalkeeper you have there. So we'll get to your midfield. So can you talk us through who you have playing on the left wing?
Well, actually, that was probably quite hard, because when I was 16 or 17, and I recall being an apprentice, and Peter Barnes walked in one day when Laurie McMenemy was. Peter Barnes was one of the most skillful technical players I've ever seen in my life. Playing for Leeds and Man City and England, actually. And he just come in, train a couple of days, and I always thought, goodness me, what a player. And I think he only played one game for Sunderland, he left, but he always had that effect on us. Peter Bakery come in for a loan spell from Everton. I think he had a successful loan spell. He was a good player wide in that position, and obviously Colin Pascoe as well was a very clever player that could play wide on the left. But eventually, I think I went for Martin Smith, local lad, and I would say, well, Martin probably flourished more after I left, but he was there. He was there as an apprentice coming through the youth ranks, and we could see what ability he had. And yeah, I was pleased to see him go on and have an excellent career at Sunderland again. Kieran Brady. I was around when Kieran was playing. He was just really unfortunate with injuries. If he'd stayed clear of his injury, God knows what he could have turned into. But he just didn't really, ever play that amount of games. Where I think, someone like Martin was more established and successful player over a longer period for Sunderland.
Yeah, definitely. I've done one of these episodes of with Martin Smith as well, and I mean, just to, as you say, local lad, and his passion for the club is incredible, really. And yeah, a player who who got to play at both Roker Park and the Stadium of Light as well. And I think it was a player that I think Peter Reid labelled. As soon as he came into Sunderland, he said, great players, and sort of the first player he lists off is probably Martin Smith. The ability that person has is incredible. So I mean, with Martin Smith in your team, I'm sure there'd be you wouldn't have to worry about service going into the strikers, because he would be there providing that.
Yeah, and I mean, he scored goals, and he was down the road. And again, I'm just talking about Frank Gray. I had to make sure I had the right Gray, because I could have easily put Mickey in there as well. Again, but Mickey was a young lad who sort of went on to bigger and better things once I'd left. But another fantastic young local talent from Sunderland.
Yeah, absolutely. So Martin Smith is in your team on the left wing. So we'll switch over to the right wing, your right wing. Who have you got there?
Well, I've gone for Don Goodman. And people might think, oh, goodness me, he wasn't a right winger really, but actually he spent most of his time on the right wing. And we used to tell him that, don't try and play through the middle, but he'd sort of get out in the right positions, and just pace, power. I shared a room with him, so I'm a little bit biased. Fantastic character. I mean, he could tell a story, and he's an after dinner speaker, and we all see him on Sky TV now as a fantastic, knowledgeable presenter. But I think I spoke to him when he played in China, and he picked the phone up and he had a Chinese accent. And then I spoke to him when he played in Scotland for Motherwell, and he had a Motherwell accent. And he just sort of picked up the local dialect and just turned himself into anything he wanted. But very quick, very direct. Sunderland paid a lot of money for him. And I think the two wide players, Martin Smith and Don Goodman, between them could both easily play through the middle, both get a fair amount of goals between them. Don was the most vicious person I've ever seen in 1v1 situations with a goalkeeper, where the goalkeepers used to come out and sort of smother the ball. Don would, oh my goodness, some of the things I've seen him do to goalkeepers, but he's quite entitled to. He's within his right, and that's how it was in those days. He was good in the air. And again, some of these selections are a little bit swayed by some of the times that we had off the pitch as well. So I'd always make sure that if I was picking a team, I'd have characters in there that would sort of provide entertainment value and foster that good team spirit, which is important as well.
Yeah, 100% is. And yeah, Don Goodman is in your team. It is pretty difficult, though, to try and narrow down 11 players and put them in a team. You don't want to leave anyone out. And I think it's difficult because, you have given a lot of honourable mentions to people. And I think I had Chris Turner on here, and he spoke about Gary Rowell for about 5 minutes, and he wasn't even in his team, So it is pretty...
Yeah, I need to make a few phone calls. I don't think I've been in anyone's team yet. I need to do a bit of lobbying. Who are you ringing next? I'll ring them up, see if I can get a game.
We'll do, yeah. All right then. So we'll go to your central midfield. Talk us through who you've gone with in the central midfield.
Yeah. Well, left side would be Gordon Armstrong. Again, grew up with Gordon. Do you know what? Gordon Armstrong, I think, was massively underrated. He could have left Sunderland. He could have moved on. One of the best headers of the ball you'll ever see as a midfielder. Great passer. Fierce competitor. Like winning mentality, which I've seen from a real early age. Would kick his grandmother. He got in the team. Don't forget. I think he played in Sunderland's team when he was 17. And another one of those players, a little bit by myself, that suffered in the end for being a little bit too loyal and not wanting to leave Sunderland. And you sort of, once you go past, I won't say you peak, but once you have a tricky spell or you lose a bit of confidence and you suffer a bit, then it's time to sort of think about moving on. And again, someone who I would, if I thought some of these lads, did I get in a spot of bother? Have I got something I want to talk over? Then Gordon and Dickie and Benno and people like that would be people that I still think, and Don, I could turn to and have a conversation. I think that speaks volumes about some of the lads that I've got on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Gordon Armstrong, he's a great guy, as well. Obviously had him on here for an episode as well. But yeah, his passion for Sunderland again is absolutely brilliant as well. So yes, you got Gordon Armstrong in your team as well. So who will be his midfield partner?
Well, again, Paul Bracewell, come from Everton on loan. Unbelievable player. If he didn't suffer the injuries that he did, he had some terrible ankle injuries. I think he would have been one of the best midfielders to play in England's midfield for years and years. Probably wouldn't even come back to Sunderland. Ultra professional, ruthless. If you didn't come up the mark with him, he wasn't interested in you. He wanted people around him that would work hard, that would listen to him. I think he earned respect. Sometimes he didn't earn respect. Some people couldn't deal with his honest and brutal mentality, and he didn't mind falling out with people. And I'm not talking about falling out before. I'm just saying his professionalism was unreal, and someone who I learned an awful lot off. And those times when I actually ended up staying with him because of my situation, and he looked after me, and I'll always be thankful for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. And I mean, a great guy, Paul Bracewell is. He had a few spells at Sunderland himself. He did leave for Newcastle. So I don't know what. I mean, obviously, that probably wasn't a very popular decision with the fans. But was it different with the players, or for the players, it was just him going to another football club? It didn't really matter who he was going to.
I think that would probably, what I've just said, that would, I don't know if sum up is the right terminology, but that shows his mentality. He would do what he thought was best for him, and he wasn't scared to make decisions. He was club captain. You got the cup finals and the playoff finals, and that you had to make some decisions about who was going to be in the squad, and people getting tickets and people getting left out, and if you went here, and he'd make it, and if you questioned him, you'd get a brutally honest answer. So didn't surprise us. he went there and done well, didn't he? I think did he come back after that as well? So he's
Yeah.
he's made a strong stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so he works his way into your team. It's looking a very solid team so far. The last position that we're going to is the two strikers. Now, for your time at the club, it can sort of only be two people. But do you want to talk us through who you've selected to go up front?
Well, you can guess already. I'll give it away. So Gates and Gabbiadini, two very different characters, two very different players. Eric Gates, for me, whoa, what a bloke. I used to sit beside him in the dressing room and he sort of took us under his wing a little bit. Little things like, you can't drive, you haven't got a car, and you walk in the bus station and do you want a lift? Or, yeah, thanks, Eric. And he'd have a little chat and I remember he made it so easy for me very early on when I played for Sunderland. He said, because Eric had a reputation for being a moaner, and he wasn't really. He was just a winner, and he played with top people in his career. Played for England, played in a very successful Ipswich team, and he just said, "If you get the ball and you don't pass it to me, I'm going to moan at you." Basically, he says, "And if you get the ball and you pass it to me, I'm going to be your best friend." And that's how I thought. He always wanted the ball. Defenders tight up his backside with his big calves, and he was brilliant at receiving, and he sort of rejuvenated his career by him and Marco having that partnership, because it hadn't always been plain sailing for him. He'd been in that team that got relegated and was one of the few players that I suppose survived and come through it. But great character, best storyteller of all time. Always laughs at his own jokes, but he'd get you laughing before the punchline. That was part of the attraction. Love to see him now. Couldn't speak highly enough about him as a player, as a person. And then obviously, I think Marco, his record, his reputation speaks for itself. Electric pace, one of the quickest players I've ever seen in my life. Hit the ball harder than anybody else I've ever seen in my life. And he was the catalyst for 2 or 3 really successful seasons, and not just as individuals. I think they both sort of respected each other, that they got the best out of each other. In fairness, me and Marco sometimes we had our differences off the pitch. We're both young lads fighting for a little bit of attention. Of course, I never got any because he scored the goal, so he got all the attention. And I was one of the also rans, but he played in a good team. They'd get the goals, they're both goal scorers, and I think there's plenty of goal scorers, a little bit of everything in that team. And it'd be a team that I'd love to go and watch, and then I'd love to go and have a night out with at the end of the game.
Fantastic. Yeah, also what you were saying with Eric Gates as well. He was, as you say, with the storytelling. I mean, I've been in the Montgomery Street before at the Stadium of Light, and he's been in there. He always likes to go up on the stage and start telling his stories to everyone, and gets everyone laughing. I think he said he came into the team when we were in the second division, and he said Eric Gates was brought into. He's going to send us. He's going to get us out of the second division,
and he did.
And he did, and he took us down. So that's something he likes to say as well. But Gabbiadini as well. I mean, definitely sort of one of my dad's favourite players as well. As you said, the person who scored that goal as well in the 1990 playoff semi-final against Newcastle. Also, he did score a really good goal against Newcastle that season as well, but in the league season, where I think he got the ball and he ran with it really fast. Outrunning any of the defenders and just finished it with his left foot. Fantastic player Gabbiadini was. So that is your team. It's going along the bottom now. Now, obviously, with every team, you need a manager. So, who have you selected to manage this team?
Well, with that bunch of characters on and off the pitch, there's only one man that could manage that, and that'd be Dennis Smith. Fantastic for me. Showed so much faith and trust in us as a young player, and I think I've done well for him as well, by the way. So it was a two-way relationship. But always filled you with confidence. When I think back to what a manager is now, he's probably one of the best examples, and he was right under my nose. If you think back, he's a man manager. He could, he kept everyone together. He had this air. People used to think he's not arrogant. He's just a confident man. I'd seen him. Bristol City played Stoke about 2 weeks ago, and he's got a bit of trouble with his knees, and he come down the steps, and I almost wasn't allowed to, but I wanted to give him a big hug. And it's always lovely to see him. Just a brilliant football man. He's in the Hall of Fame because he managed over 1,000 games, and I think it was a breath of fresh air. Him and Viv Busby when he come to Sunderland, and then obviously bringing Malcolm Crosby, who, if I had to pick another manager, it would be Malcolm. Got a great personal relationship with Malcolm. Still see him. He lives in Oxford. We get together when we can. But Dennis was just a one-off, life and soul of the party. Away from football, he used to take us abroad. He'd have even more fun than the players, but never. There was a line that he didn't cross, and he never crossed it, and he kept everyone in check and got us away safely, and always got us back home safely.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Great to hear Dennis Smith being such a great manager there. So yeah, that's your team and your manager. It sort of brings us to the end. But thank you very much for coming on, Gary. How have you found it going through the team?
Just want to show you something. Stay there.
I'm staying here.
Right, so I've just moved out. So I've got a few mementos in my house.
Oh, nice.
This will take pride of place when it goes up soon.
Excellent.
I haven't got much, but I've got a little wall dedicated to my time at Sunderland, and it'll be there for all time.
Excellent. How have you found going through your team really, and reliving some of your good memories at Sunderland?
Well, it's always nice when I get asked to do anything. So thank you for that. It's very difficult because, goodness me, I played with quite a few players, met some brilliant personalities, some outstanding footballers. But I've kept it a little bit tight. It's, most of them lads I've got a personal connection with as well. People that I've been involved with in my time away from football, but all had played a significant part, I would say. All of them lads in the history of the club. The history of the club was not just about Sunderland being in the Premier League and where they are now. It's all the years before that and before I played. And, I look at people like Jimmy Montgomery, who keeps in touch now and again. And the club's always been set as well. I've never hung around the club. I've always sort of left and left the area. But whenever I go back, and it's not very often, I always get looked after. People like Jimmy and that, and I'm always thankful for that, Matt.
Excellent. Great to hear. Got one last thing before we do go, and that is, for the Sunderland fans watching, Gary, do you have a message for the Sunderland supporters?
Well, the ones I can remember me, just say thank you for your support. Had some great days. The ones that went to Roker Park will understand what I'm talking about, the passion of that place, and I miss that. I do miss the Northeast, and just keep supporting your team. Hopefully the good times are just around the corner. The new ownership, it's a new dawn. Let's all be optimistic and hope that it's not too long before Sunderland can get back into the division that they belong well and truly. And I'm not just saying it. Listen, they do. You look at some of the teams that have played in the Premier League. Teams like, how can Bournemouth get in the Premier League and Sunderland are in the third division, if you like. So, yeah, let's look forward, and happy times around the corner. I don't want to watch another one of those Netflix series where it's all doom and gloom. I want to see a happy ending somewhere. Yeah,
as do we all, really. Hopefully we have one this season. Just fingers crossed. Though. But thank you everyone for watching. Now, of course, videos in association with the Sunderland Food Bank and the Sunderland Fans Museum. You can go check them out. All the links are in the description. Of course, you two fantastic organisations who really helped and the people in Sunderland during this lockdown as well. So yeah, make sure you go check them out. Donate whatever you can. But yeah, so from me and Gary, please everyone take care, stay safe. We'll see you in the next episode. How are the lads?